White House response as the Biden administration unveils plans to support abortion. Mississippi's pro-life governor tells us his reaction to the overturning of Roe versus Wade. Tragedy in Texas. 50 migrants are found dead in horrific circumstances near San Antonio. We have the latest. And proclaiming the gospel. A closer look at the advice the Holy Father gave to thousands of members of a Catholic missionary group. On EWTN News Nightly for Tuesday, June 28th, 2022. Thank you so much for being with us tonight on this feast of St. Irenaeus. I'm Tracy Sable. The Biden administration is fighting back against the U.S. Supreme Court decision overturning Roe versus Wade. U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary Xavier Becerra calls it a moment of crisis in health care. White House Correspondent Owen Jensen questioned the secretary directly about his position on abortion. Owen?
Hi, Tracy, and good evening to you. Now, yesterday, I caught up with Secretary Xavier Becerra right outside our tent here on the North Lawn. It was not a scheduled interview, but he agreed to answer a few of my questions, including on abortion. Do you think it would be a good thing if there were fewer abortions in America?
I think if we leave things in the hands of a woman to make decisions for her own body, we're going to have the best decisions made.
U.S. Health Secretary Xavier Becerra doubles down on his support for abortion, despite the Supreme Court ruling. Now with Roe gone, will HHS fight every state that tries to regulate the morning after pill?
Department of Health and Human Services will continue to do everything we can to make sure women have access to the services they need.
In a speech today, Secretary Becerra said that includes drugs.
HHS will take steps to increase access to medication abortion.
And he slammed the ruling on Roe.
Friday's Supreme Court decision was despicable.
But National Right to Life pushes back, telling Secretary Becerra abortion is not now, nor has it ever been health care, ever. Still, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi wrote a Dear Colleague letter to Democratic lawmakers telling them they should pass bills to codify Roe v. Wade, protect phone health application privacy, and ensure women can travel to another state to get an abortion, even though none of the measures are expected to pass the Senate. And I questioned Secretary Becerra about another controversial issue. On the proposed Title IX changes, some female athletes are very concerned women's sports will be ruined if they have to compete against biological men. To them, you say what?
I want to make sure that we respect the laws of the federal government, in this case Title IX, Title X, which is Family Planning Services. But when it comes to Title IX, I think it's pretty clear that an individual has the right under Title IX to participate in sports the way anyone else would.
Now today, after his speech, Secretary Becerra was asked by another reporter about the possibility of the feds actually transporting pregnant women to another state so they can get an abortion, and whether or not that includes violating the Hyde Amendment. The Secretary would not directly answer that, instead only to say every option is on the table. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization, the case involving Mississippi's pro-life law, brought an end to federal legalized abortions last week. The issue of abortion in America now returns to the state level. Joining us now to discuss is Governor Tate Reeves, Republican from Mississippi. Governor Reeves, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it. Tell us how you felt when you heard the decision come down.
Well, thank you for having me on, Tracy. I was ecstatic. This is a moment that many in the pro-life movement have worked for almost 50 years. And for Mississippi to lead the way in a case that overturns Roe versus Wade really made me even prouder to be a Mississippian.
Yeah, and Governor Reeves, I know that Mississippi has a trigger law that's set to go into effect in a few days. However, I understand that Jackson Women's Health Organization, that they filed a new lawsuit. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. The way in which the trigger law works in Mississippi is that the Attorney General has to certify that Roe v. Wade has in fact been overturned, which she did yesterday. And then it goes into effect 10 days thereafter. Jackson Women's Health Organization, the exact same group that sued us on our 15-week ban, that made it to the Supreme Court, that ultimately helped overturn Roe v. Wade, has filed another lawsuit in state court claiming a state court opportunity. And so hopefully our Mississippi Supreme Court will hear this case very soon, throw it out, and our trigger law can go into effect in short order.
And Governor, what type of impact does that have right now, if any?
Well, obviously, the current situation is that you cannot. The abortion clinic hopefully is looking to be shut down. We're ending abortion in Mississippi because our trigger law actually only allows for abortions in the case of rape or the life of the mother. And so I anticipate that will go into effect unless the court intervenes and chooses not to allow it to do so.
Yeah, and speaking of moms, I'm curious, how does your state plan to support mothers and children and continue to cultivate a culture of life?
Well, that's such an important question, and it's what I've been saying now, not just for the last day or two, but for the last several months as we've contemplated Roe being overturned. For us, it's never been about simply winning a court case. It's always been about creating a culture of life such that we support those moms and those babies, recognizing that is an unborn child in the womb, and we have to do everything we can, both as a government, but also more importantly as a faith community, to come together and help those pregnancy resource centers make sure that we provide the resources that are needed for moms and their children.
Yeah, and Governor, I'm curious, what are you hearing from the people of Mississippi now?
Well, the primary reason that we were able to, and by we I mean the elected officials in our state, were able to fight this litigation and fight this battle all the way up to the Supreme Court is because Mississippians are God-fearing people. We were very fortunate in our state that we are supported by a large majority of Mississippians in our pro-life stance. There is a lot of relief. But there's also recognition that to create that culture of life, we have to come together as a faith community. We have to come together as leaders, and we have to work to make sure that we are doing everything in our power to make sure that the resources that are needed by those that find themselves sometimes in an unfortunate situation or one that they did not plan, to make sure that we are helping provide the resources that they need.
And we have about 30 seconds or so left, so not a whole lot of time. But I'm wondering, Governor, I want to give you the last word here. Any final thoughts?
Well, all I can tell you is that we believe very strongly that we were put in this position to fight this battle because that's what's God's will, and to Him be the glory.
Absolutely. Amen. Thank you so much, Governor, for your time today. We appreciate it. Well, Mississippi is among the half dozen or so states where voters are headed to the polls today for primary elections. These are the first elections since Roe versus Wade was overturned. Abortion is expected to play a role in several races, including in Colorado and Illinois. Well, at least 50 migrants have been found dead in a tractor trailer in San Antonio, Texas. A dozen others were hospitalized, including children. Pope Francis says that he is praying for the victims. President Joe Biden calls the incident horrifying and heartbreaking. But the governor of Texas says the deaths are at least in part because of the Biden administration's, quote, open borders policy. Political and religious leaders from around the world are in Washington, D.C. to attend the second annual International Religious Freedom Summit. It is the largest civil society-led conference in the world focused on advancing international religious freedom. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales has more.
One of the issues that this two-day conference on international religious freedom is dealing with are the attacks on Catholics and churches in Nigeria. I sat down with Nigerian Bishop Jude Arogundade, who was there minutes after the attack took place at St. Francis Catholic Church in his diocese.
What happened in St. Francis is awful, unbelievable, that anyone under whatever persuasion we go as far as killing worshippers who were not armed, children, women,
The bishop here in D.C. is a guest of the Aid to the Church in Need as part of their effort to provide the persecuted church a voice. Condemns the June 5th attack in southwestern Nigeria that killed more than 50 worshipers. He calls it part of a genocide against Christians, and the bishop says in the week since the deadly attack, Catholic priests have been kidnapped.
Priests are being picked up in their rectories, and you have to pay heavy ransom in order to get them released. Some have been killed. America, Europe, and other civilized world should stand their ground.
The bishop tells me the radical Muslim group Boko Haram is growing and continues to terrorize Christians in the country. He says the faithful remain strong and are even growing in numbers. But the bishop also says that the world must act now to prevent more bloodshed.
But if we allow it to fester, it's going to be another disgrace for our generation. So please, let the whole world hear our story.
The bishop's prayer, by bringing awareness to this issue, leaders around the world will put the pressure on the Nigerian government to make them stop. In Washington, D.C., Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
Coming up, why the Vatican Secretary of State is headed to Africa. Plus, meet the former NBA player taking a stand for religious freedom. The Vatican Secretary of State is headed to Africa. Cardinal Pietro Parolin will visit Congo and South Sudan for 8 days, beginning on Friday. He is traveling at the request of the Holy Father, whose trip to the continent was postponed because of knee pain. As we previously mentioned, the International Religious Freedom Summit takes place this week in Washington, D.C. The summit aims to, in part, highlight the stories of those who have faced religious persecution and connect advocates for religious freedom with useful resources and information. And joining us now is Enes Kanter Freedom, free agent, NBA basketball player, and human rights activist. Enes, thank you so much for your time today. It's a great pleasure to be with you. I want to talk more about the summit, but first, if you don't mind, tell us your story. How did you go from the NBA to now being one of the most well-known human rights advocates?
First of all, thank you for having me. It's an honor. I remember, I was talking about the problems that are happening in my home country, Turkey, the last 7-8 years. Unfortunately, there is no freedom of religion, of speech, of expression, and there is no freedom of protest. And there are many people who are in jails right now just because of they stand for the right thing. So I've been trying to amplify about the what's going on over there. And I remember just last summer, I was doing a basketball camp. And, during my basketball camp, I was taking pictures with the kids one by one. And one of the parents actually called me out front of everybody and said, how can you call yourself a human rights activist when your Muslim brothers and sisters are suffering in concentration camps in China just because they want to live their religion freely? That hit me so hard. And I promised myself that day, I was like, whatever happens, I'm going to stand up for the right things, not just in my home country, Turkey, but around the world. So from that day forward, I was like, I want to try to be the voice of all those innocent people out there who don't have a voice.
Yeah, and I know you often do talk about Uyghur Muslims. If you don't mind, talk to us a little bit more about that. What would you want our viewers to know about what's happening in China?
Unfortunately, when you look at while we are talking right now, there's a genocide happening towards Uyghur people. There are 3 or 4 million, Uyghur ethnic group right now in concentration camps are getting tortured and raped every day. And that is only one region. When you go to Tibet, it's a cultural genocide. And then you look at what's happening with Hong Kong and what's happening with Mongolians. And then you go outside of China and you see what's happening with Taiwan right now. It's heartbreaking. So I feel like, we need to do whatever we can to stand with those innocent people. And, unfortunately, I have so many, people who are telling me those, heartbreaking stories. And whenever I hear them, I'm like, I don't care how much money or business involved, or I'm going to do whatever I can to just, bring awareness about all the human rights violations that are happening, especially the one in China, because it's the most brutal one.
Yeah, and I want to go back now to the International Religious Freedom Summit, the reason why you're in D.C. today. Tell us a little bit more, if you don't mind, about the summit, and also you're speaking. What message do you hope to convey during your keynote address?
When I hear about this summit, I get so excited. I immediately called my manager and I said, yes, I want to be there. Before everything, I want to learn. I want to educate myself, because here there are many people around the world, many activists around the world coming here and telling me about their story, and they always give me an idea about what I can do for them. And other than that, I think what I believe, what my message will be, it doesn't matter what your religion is, what your skin color is, what your background is. The most important thing in life is leave your differences on the table and trying to find what we have in common. Because we only have one world to live. So we need to make this world better together. That is going to be my message to my audience.
Yeah, switching gears just maybe so slightly. I understand that you recently were at the Vatican and you met the Holy Father. And tell us more about that.
Oh, it was one of the most beautiful experiences I ever had. I actually growing up following him obviously on social media, and I always wanted to be on his presence. So I am actually really good friends with some of my friends in New York, and they organized this meeting for me, and I got so excited. Cardinal Dolan, I think when I met him, he inspired me so much. It gave me so much hope for the future, and I was like, I want to meet him. So he arranged it, and I actually took a trip to Vatican, and I actually attended this big VIP session with Pope, and it was so beautiful, and it was so peaceful, and just even beyond his presence was so amazing. And I remember one of his, I guess, his student called me. He's like, "Hey, why don't you come back here so we can arrange a meeting with him one-on-one, and maybe you can do a little basketball camp for the kids here." I was like, "Oh my God, that will be my dream." So I'm actually thinking about going back there maybe in October or November and do a little basketball camp for the kids in Vatican, and actually sit down with him one-on-one and actually give him one of my jerseys, because it says freedom in the back, and I know that's what he stands for.
That is amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. We hope you'll come back on again after you go back to the Vatican and do that basketball camp. We'd love to hear all about it. And Enes, thank you so much for what you do. We appreciate it. God bless you.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate that.
Up next, what the Holy Father told several thousand Catholic missionaries earlier this week in Rome. The World Meeting of Families brought thousands of people from around the world to Rome. One family from Sweden arrived with their 10 children. EWTN Vatican Bureau Chief Andreas Thonhauser recently spoke with the Holt family on why they traveled to the Eternal City.
We're here in Rome at the World Meeting of Families, and with me is the Holt family from Sweden. 10 children and their parents accompanied them to be present here when the World Meeting of Families is taking place. Christopher, what brings you to Rome?
Well, for us it's important to be together as a family, I think, to participate in the conference. And also we're going to do a pilgrimage to Assisi afterwards. And we're combining the two in the same trip.
What will you do in Assisi?
Well, a lot of things, but visit the Basilica of St. Francis, of course, and Santa Chiara, and other things. Yeah.
What are your expectations of the World Meeting of Families?
Well, I hope to get some illumination on how the Church views the situation in today's world. There are many challenges for families, I think, and it's difficult to follow the media debate. I'd like to hear what people are saying here, and I hope that will be enlightening.
And what are your hopes for the World Meeting of Families?
Well, clarity.
More clarity here, and you brought all your children. You're also here. What are your expectations participating here with your parents in the World Meeting of Families?
I don't really know.
What will you be hoping for?
they speak a lot during when we eat. So it will be interesting to hear what they have to say.
Are you hoping to meet a lot of new people?
Yes, especially Italian people.
Very well. And maybe one last question also. Coming here as a family, what do you think the church has to, how should the church approach families?
I think the church needs to be strong and really stand up for families. It's very difficult. There are so many challenges facing modern families today, especially big families, and we all need to feel the support of the church and a sort of confirmation that the church is on our. They have our backs. That's what I think is most important in this moment in time.
In Europe, most families, there's a father, a mother, and a child. Most of the times, you have 10 children. Why?
Well, we're blessed.
Wonderful. And how do you like it in Rome?
I like it.
Very well. The Holt family from Sweden, thank you so much for being with us, and thank you for coming here to Rome for the World Meeting of Families.
And the World Meeting of Families wrapped up on Sunday. Well, finally tonight, Pope Francis urges a group of missionaries to remain open to the promptings of the Holy Spirit.
Tutto nella Chiesa, niente fuori della Chiesa.
The Holy Father was speaking to 5,000 members of the missionary group earlier this week. They are part of the Neocatechumenal Way. The Catholic lay organization was founded in 1964 and draws its inspiration from the practices of the early church. Joining us now from Italy is Dino Furgione, member of the Catholic Lay Order. Dino, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. If you don't mind, tell us more about the meeting with Pope Francis and the remarks that really stuck out to you the most.
Thanks, first of all, for this important opportunity that you are giving us once again to transmit through the screen the joy and the happiness, really the holiness that has passed through this important meeting, World Meeting of Families. Has been very, very important for us to be on a delegation with other two families from 3 continents. We are originally from Rome on mission in South Africa, so Africa, United States, and Europe. We were representing the reality of the Neocatechumenal Way. We have been so happy to give glory to God for what we heard. Many experiences, many testimonies, including us bringing the testimony of the presence of Jesus Christ in our marriages. And this is the need for the world and the society of today. This is what the Pope told us. When we had the opportunity to hug him, to greet him, he said 9 children is a blessing for the world and the society of today and for the Mother Church. Go and continue to announce and to testimony, to witness with your presence among the people.
That is wonderful. And Dino, can you tell us a little bit more about your movement? We understand it's less than 100 years old.
Absolutely. The reality of the Neocatechumenal Way was inspired at the Second Vatican Council. So in 2018, we had the very, very huge gathering in Rome with Pope Francis to celebrate the 50th anniversary. With the presence of all continents. We were thousands and thousands of people. And this reality, actually, I prefer to remark, to quote the words of the popes. St. John Paul II said that this is not a movement, this is a way, is a reality, is an itinerary of Christian initiation, valid and punctual for today's time, for the modern time, for the time of today.
And Dino, before I let you go, I know that you're there right now with your beautiful wife and some of your wonderful children. What would you say to someone who maybe isn't sure whether they want to start a family?
Because the first important discovery was that marriage is really the place of sanctity, the place of holiness. Why I'm telling you this? Because I've realized that this woman, my wife, is the woman that God has planned for me since ever. To do what? For an important mission, to send me to heaven. And as well, I have the same mission. So when we think about marriage, we cannot be discouraged thinking of financial or economic things. We have to think about going to heaven. That is important for us, because my mission as well is to send her to heaven, means to stay in the truth, so that between us should be and must be present Jesus Christ. So the first spouse is Christ in a marriage. And this is what Pope Francis told us during the course of these days, encouraging us to bring the happiness and the joy of the married life.
Well, very well said, Dino. And thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. God bless you, and God bless your beautiful family.
Thank you. A big hug from all of us. You can greet all of them. Ciao.
And we thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. Good night and God bless.